Hello, everybody. I'm live. This is the podcast. I'm Garrett Sims. Welcome back. It is Wednesday, January 20th. It is a beautiful day. It's about 7:03, so I guess when I say beautiful day, I guess I mean beautiful night. In case you're wondering why I didn't post a video yesterday, because we were working on something completely awesome. You'll see why in a second. You already noticed that I'm talking and my picture is up and not me, and you're about to see in a little bit why we did that. Here we go. See, we got a new setup. We got the name up there, right? I guess I'm pointing the wrong way. Right down the little corner is my watermark. I did that myself. Everything I do is my drawings. We set up some new things. If there's ever a video that I have to show, I can go to my screen and I can play the video that I want to play. I think it's truly awesome. So I'm excited. I also have a TikTok. I do. I'm kind of excited about it. I just get on there and tell people, like, hey, look at my podcast. It hasn't worked out so well. I think I've got a total of 7 views from it. But everything beside, we got sports to dig into today. Gonna go back to this. Listen, when we look at the Houston Texans situation, there hasn't been one of that nature in a very long time. A lot of people are saying, me included, that he really shouldn't have. Deshaun Watson should not have a say in who they pick for the GM and who they pick for the coach. Listen, that's not what a player does. We all know that. There's a lot of people that say it. But when the owner says, listen, Deshaun, we're going to include you in stuff, you have to include him. That was something I kind of had to look into and had to say, you know what, like, he does have a right to be a little upset. Now, do I think he should request a trade? No. Because if you take away 1 year in his career, he's made it to the playoffs every time. He tore his ACL once and made it to the playoffs twice. And that's something that you have to look at. I mean, is it really worth it to trade him now? The Texans, and I thought about this last night. I was thinking about the situation. I was replaying it in my head. You know, I'm like looking at different viewpoints, trying to look at it from a different angle. And I said, you know, it actually makes a lot of sense to trade him. Why? Because you don't have a pick in the first round. You got a quarterback that doesn't really want to play, and you need a lot more than a quarterback to start winning again. It makes a hell of a lot of sense. I started looking at potential fits, and I'm going to be honest with you, there is so many teams that could use him. You look up and down the NFL, Watson is a top 5 quarterback, whether you want to believe it or not. And you truly go and what team, it's not what team can use him, it's what team can't use him. You know, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens, the Seahawks. Maybe if you want to throw in Arizona. I mean, there's a Green Bay obviously wouldn't need him. But you can look up and down, and you can see a bunch of teams that can need him. I mean, there is a good majority of the league that would not mind to have Deshaun Watson. With that being said, I said, you know, I looked myself in the mirror and I said, listen, where can he go? Where could he go where they can get trade value, prospects, draft stock? You know, what are the teams that could kind of afford that? Because, you know, there's an unwritten rule when it comes to trades. You don't trade in your division. You don't try to trade in your conference. If it happens, it happens. And you don't want to try to trade a very good player like him to a contender. Those are all things you have to look at. Those are the things that I look at. I don't think Houston's going to send him to Miami. I just don't think it's plausible. Miami may have the draft picks and the players to give back, but do they really want to deal with the Miami Dolphins just wreaking havoc on the AFC? I mean, then again, it's not their problem, but if they want to compete again, then they're going to have to say, listen, like, we're not going to make you into a superpower that we have to defeat later, because that's what will happen. So I said, where are some fits that make sense? The Jets make sense. The Jets actually make the best sense. Great draft picks, can get Sam Darnold back, and Darnold's a really good quarterback, just hasn't had the coaching or the system yet. And they got a couple other players, a couple draft picks. You know that they got the number 2 overall pick this year, which I think would go to Houston in case that in case that this trade happens, whatever, this year before the draft. So I think the Jets make a lot of sense. I think number 2 for me is a team that everybody would kind of scratch their heads at and say, really? I think the Lions make total sense. A new coach. They don't really have a terrible defense. Parts of it isn't good. But, they really, up and down, are a solid team. They just didn't really have the coaching. Like, Matt Patricia was a defensive coach, and he was a terrible one. And I think you can make any player into a good player. That's just how you look at it. The Texans can get Matthew Stafford back in return. They can get some draft picks because the Lions didn't do so well this year. And I think it's going to take about 3 first rounds to land Watson. And even if I think Deshaun goes there, I don't think they make it out of 3rd place. Maybe they push for 2nd place, but I don't think they make it out of 3rd. So you would know for at least 2 more years you would get at least somewhere in the top 10. And I think it makes a lot of sense. Now, the 3rd team that makes sense for me for Watson is the Texans. Listen, go sign a wide receiver. That's all they have to do. Go get Allen Robinson. Prove to him that you're going to help him out because they're 1 wide receiver away. They're 1 tight end away. They're a couple pieces away. The defense isn't great, but it's good. You don't have to have a great defense anymore to win. Look at the Chiefs. Look at the Bills. You just have to have a good one. So I think they make the 3rd best fit. Give it time. Let the situation play out. See what happens in a couple months, then come back to it. The 4th, I think, is the Bears. I said Allen Robinson a couple minutes earlier. I seriously think that he will stay with the Bears if they can get Deshaun Watson. I think Watson will be like, listen, man, come play, come stay. They got the defense, obviously, to go along with it. The reason the defense hasn't been as productive as it was in year 1 is because people are figuring out Matt Nagy's offense. And I think Deshaun Watson would add an X factor to that offense. I think that makes a lot of sense. Now, with Phillip Rivers retiring, I'll get into that later, people are like, oh, why don't the Colts get him? I actually woke up to a text this morning from a buddy that's saying the Colts should make a push for Deshaun Watson. Well, it's like I said, there are unwritten rules that you don't do when you trade. And one of them is you don't trade in the division. Not unless you're getting Darius Leonard, the center, 3 or 4 first-round draft. You're going to have to make them hurt for it. So I don't think they make a lot of sense. My 5th team that makes a lot of sense is the 49ers. Jimmy G would come to the Texans. They would have their first-round pick this year. They would have a couple next coming years. Maybe they could throw around 2nd, 3rd, maybe trade away another defensive piece or something like that because their defense is loaded. They got stars everywhere, maybe like a Richard Sherman. I think that's very plausible. Those are my top 5 on where I can go. And in order for this trade to happen, at least for me, if I'm a GM, I have to get back a decent quarterback. I'm not getting a good quarterback. I'm getting a decent one that can contend for a playoff spot and win a playoff game. That's what you're looking at. That's what you want. Not only that, but you want 3 first-round picks. And if you don't get 3 first-round picks, you want 2 with a second-round pick and a third-round pick. Like, you want to make – that's the type of player Deshaun Watson is. He is a game changer. He is just as good as Mahomes. He is just as good as Allen. And he is better than Lamar Jackson. The dude carried the Texans to the playoffs and playoff wins. Now, of course, he lost in that game against Kansas City, but that game was an outlier. You really go back and you look, the dude's not bad. And even this year, you could say arguably that he's up there for MVP. If you guys see down at the bottom, that's actually the new chat function we got going on there. So it's kind of interesting. Also, if you hit subscribe, there's a little subscribe thing. That's all I'm going to talk about with Deshaun Watson. I think it's interesting. We've talked about it so much, and we're probably going to continue talking about it. It's very interesting. The other night, Golden State played the Lakers, came back from an 18-point deficit to come back and win. And it's nothing that should shock you. It's nothing that should say, well, Golden State's now the best team in the West, because that's not how it works. It's a regular season game. Anything can happen in the regular season. So what my takeaways from that game is that Golden State can be Golden State without Klay Thompson. They can be a playoff team without Klay Thompson. I think that is already proven. I think they got the right balance for the future. I think they got Wiseman, which was lucky as hell. And I think next year they will probably push for finals. They will be arguably up there with the best team in the West. They would be up there with the Clippers and Lakers, in my opinion. That's what I took away. It's nothing to worry about. It's nothing to blame on the Lakers. I don't think the Lakers have any problems, and to have the start they have and then look at every other team, it's impressive. But I think what you have to look at for the Warriors is once they get Klay back, guess what? They will push for a finals, and they probably could win a finals. I look at it and say, can they go against the Bucks? Hell yeah, they can go against the Bucks. Can they go against the Nets? I think the Nets are the only team that can possibly beat them, other than teams in the West. But if they make it to the finals, and these are the teams they have to play, I like their chances against a lot of those teams. They'll get back to what made them a very good team in a two-shooter system with Klay and Steph. And they'll have, if they can keep Oubre and Wiseman, that's just fuel on the fire, man. You go back and you look at their championship teams, they had KD, but if you want to even go before that, when they first started winning, they didn't have KD. And the team that they would have next year was better than those early teams, which is insane to think about. Another thing that I consider insane, and this is going to kind of get into a rant for me, is baseball. I can't stand watching baseball right now. It's one of the... The Padres are making moves. The Blue Jays are now making moves. The Yankees are making moves. And the Astros kind of made one big deal. But my problem is at one point, the Padres' number one pitcher was Chris Paddock. You know where Chris Paddock is put now in that rotation? 5th. They got 5 better. Well, 4. They got 5 too, because they got another guy. That's probably going to be a long reliever, because I'm pretty sure they had another one they could have been in the rotation. You just look and it's insane. It's truly insane. They got 4 better guys, 4 better freaking pitchers that are all number ones. They got Blake Snell. They got the guy that they had last year. They had Paddock. Then they got Musgrove. And how is anybody going to compete with that? The Dodgers have barely even made moves. How can you watch baseball when you know there's a good chance that it's probably going to be between the Padres and the Dodgers in the NL? And I really don't think there's anybody else that even poses a threat. And then you go to the AL, and it's probably just going to be between the Yankees, maybe the Blue Jays if their moves pan out for them, because they're young too. They got some good stuff going on. They're probably like the Royals that I talked about, or the Mets team that made it to the World Series. Teams like that, like the Tampa Bay Rays, they're just putting together stuff and hoping it sticks. And if it does stick, then they can compete in the future for a championship. But it's going to be within a 1, 2, 3 year time period. But it'll be between the Yankees, the Rays, or I do this shit all the time. Maybe the Rays, I don't know. A little tricky. I'm out of it today. But the Blue Jays and maybe the Astros, because the Astros still have that rotation. They still have Correa. Yes, they lost Springer, but it's really not that big a deal for me. And the White Sox. The White Sox are no slouches either. But, when you say, okay, out of a 30-team league, the fact that maybe 6 only have a chance, 6 are going to the playoffs, and then everybody else is going to be, who's performing? If you were a Royals fan and you're sitting here saying, we have a chance to make the playoffs. No, you don't. I'm not going to sit here and be delusional about it, because we don't. I think that would be an insane assumption based off how the MLB's worked. And I said this last time, Manfred needs to get off his ass, because enough's enough. You need to put a salary cap on. Teams just spending money isn't going to work. You are not making the league better by letting teams like that just spend money, because the small market teams have no chance. Baseball has always been draft well or sign well. It's how they work. And maybe once in a while you get lucky and you get somebody that's loyal and they'll stay for like a hometown discount. But hometown discounts do not exist anymore. And, there's no loyalty. And not that I'm saying that loyalty should be a thing, but, I was a guy that loved Derek Hosmer, and he went to the Padres. Now he probably has a chance to win. They told him that, in a couple of years you'll have a chance to win. Well, they have a really good chance. I mean, I'd love to see what the bets are on that because they are probably the best team in the NL. And it's not even a doubt. Not even a doubt in my mind. I'm going to move off that. It sickens my stomach every time I talk about baseball because I used to love it, and now you just see it turn into this thing that you really, really just gut wrenches you, gut checks you, and makes you feel a certain way where you don't even want to watch it anymore. I don't even like seeing baseball. I don't like playing MLB The Show because I'm just like, this isn't even fun anymore. The championship Sunday is coming up for the NFL. We all know about the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. You don't need me to talk about that. You don't need me to tell you. Other than he's passed his Monday protocol, past Tuesday's protocol, and was limited today in practice. I don't think it was a concussion, but I am no doctor, nor am I in a position to tell anybody that. But he will probably play Sunday, no doubt in my mind. With that being said, I think that the Browns, to me, posed more of a threat because their strengths aimed more towards the Chiefs' weakness. Strong run game, not good run defense. It's kind of mediocre, but, a little below average, however you want to call it. I think the Bills play more in to the Chiefs' strengths than anything else. The Bills are a passing team. Everybody knows that. Josh Allen is going to go back and he's going to pass. They don't have Zach Moss. They lost him. They have Devin Singletary. And not that he's not a good running back, but he's not going to run for 100 yards on a defense. It's just not who he is. He's more of the screen, catch-a-pass type of guy, elusive back. Like, the receiving side to CMC or Kamara or something along those lines. He's not a pure runner. And the Chiefs' defense is no slouch to the pass. I think they are a better pass-defend team than a lot of people will give them credit for. I mean, you take away a couple of Baker Mayfield dimes, and, they really didn't do nothing. So with that being said, I think whether Mahomes plays or he doesn't is going to play a big factor into that, and that's still something to keep your eye on because he may not play. There's a good chance he still could not play, even though I think he will. But there's always that doubt. There's always that 5% chance that he doesn't. And in that case, that totally changes everything. But good case scenario, he plays. I think the Chiefs win this game. I think it's absolutely no doubt. The Bills have been a great story. It's a story versus a good team. And, Josh Allen's had a good year. I do think they're a good team, but I think this year it's been more of a story for them. And I'd love for them to prove me wrong, but I'd rather them prove me wrong next year. The Chiefs are just a veteran team. They're the defending champs. Their offense is electric. Even if they get down 20 points, they'll still put 20 points up on you and catch back up. So that's where I'm going with that. Now you move over to the NFC. This one's a little bit more weird. Tampa Bay beat the Packers 38-10 earlier in the season, Week 6. Everybody knows about it. It was one of the Packers' worst performances as a team. The defense didn't play good. The offense struggled. And that's just accredited to how good that Bucs defense is. And they're playing really good right now. They won them that game against New Orleans. Because it felt like New Orleans had the momentum for a little throughout that game. Like I just kind of felt like, New Orleans kind of had it, and then they tied it up, went into the fourth quarter, and then the Bucs just stormed. Put a firestorm on the poor Saints and Drew Brees' farewell tour, whatever you want to call it. And you look at it, I think the Bucs defense from a standpoint matches up really well with the Packers. Their front seven can stop the run. That's why I don't think that Aaron Jones is going to play much of a factor. Now, you say Devontae Adams tore up Jalen Ramsey. And the Rams' secondary is good. It's one of the better ones. But if you look at the Bucs defense and people say that their secondary is atrocious or, it's probably the weakest part of their defense, I think they got a lot of talented guys at corner. Maybe the safety position's a little bit of a problem right now, but, their corners are pretty well they can lock people up, and all they have to do is double-team Adams. That's a no-brainer for a defensive coordinator. Of course you're going to double-team him. You could play a double-team on Adams, and if you truly wanted to, a double-team on Tunyon. And I'm telling you right now, MVS and Lazard are not beating you. And you want them to beat you. That's how you want to play if you're the Bucs. So you want to say, listen, we're going to take away Devontae Adams. Beat us. Beat us with somebody else that isn't him. I think it's going to be a challenge. I think that those linebackers are very good. They can bring pressure. They can get out in coverage. They do their homework. And then you just look at it, and it comes down to Packers defense. How's it playing? It's playing a lot better. I still don't think it's where it should be at if it wants to beat the Bucs. The Bucs are catching their stride at the right point. And it's almost at the wrong point because it's coming so late into the season, but they're finally catching it. They do start games a little slow, but once they start picking it up, they'll catch their stride and they'll be a very good team. Tom Brady's no slouch. He's got film on their defense. I think that's a disadvantage. You would have film against him anyway, but I'm just saying, Tom Brady has already faced that defense once this year. So you're going to have to say, Tom is going to be motivated, and he's going to have the tools, and he's got the weapons with Gronk, Godwin, and Evans. I just think this one will be interesting. I think it will be close, but I think the Bucs are going to edge it out, making them the first team in NFL history to play the Super Bowl at their home stadium. I think there's a very good chance. So then you go back to a rematch, the Bucs versus the Chiefs. And I'm not going to go into that because it's not Super Bowl time. I don't know if that's the matchup, but if this was the matchup, I would take the Chiefs because Andy Reid, you saw that ballsy play he had on Sunday. He's going to pull out the stops to win this game. He is going to put the book on Todd Bowles and that defense. And there's no doubt in my mind the Chiefs come up on top. If it's the Packers, I still think they come up on top. For some reason, if the Bills win, I think the Bills are at a disadvantage to play the Packers and the Bucs. I don't think they play well in either of those teams. I think their best situation if the Bills made it to the Super Bowl would be the Packers. But if they played the Bucs, I think it's a blowout. They play the Packers, it's going to be a close game, but I feel like the Packers win. So, there's so many matchups you could look at, and it's going to be fun. But I feel like the most fun matchup would be Rodgers, Mahomes, or Mahomes and Brady. Because then Mahomes would have a chance to, if I'm correct, he lost to Brady his first year starting twice. His second year beat him. So the record's tied right now. So this one would be basically for the bragging rights, the head-to-head record, who's going to win it, whatever. There was also news today that Philip Rivers had retired. I think this was really a surprise to me because I felt like after the Eagles fired Doug Peterson, I felt like Carson Wentz was going to stay. But maybe the Colts are trying to get a quarterback. I don't think it's Deshaun Watson. I just think they'd have to give up too much to get Deshaun. I think that they're going to either make a push for Carson Wentz or they're going to try to make a push in the draft to go up and get somebody. And kind of like what teams did earlier to, push up. And, I keep using this example, but the Chiefs did it. They went up to get Mahomes when they had a little bit later of pick. They were in range, and I think that the Colts are in range enough if they truly wanted to, then they could really trade and go and get a quarterback if they felt like they had their guy. And with the Deshaun Watson things, it makes it 20 times weirder because you don't know what the Jets are going to do. Maybe they trade for Watson. You don't know what the other teams are going to do. Maybe even the Falcons go and get Deshaun Watson. I think that's a fit too. It's going to be an interesting offseason, and I'm glad that I get to follow it and get to look at it every day and say, listen, take different takes, go from a different perspective. Listen to what everybody else is saying and kind of go with the grain or go against that grain. And I think that's very interesting. I'm sorry for this one being so short. There's probably a crap ton of things that I'm missing out on. We'll get back on a regular schedule. I just really wanted to debut the new look. I seriously don't think that this is going to be all. I'm going to keep continuously upgrading. My goal right now is to provide content that everybody wants to watch, whether you're driving in your car, whether you're working out. I want you to come in and listen and either agree what I have to say or don't, and tell me what I could do better. So I'm going to throw this out there. Food for thought. What do you guys think of the new setup? What do I have to do? Should I do different things on TikTok? What should I do? I have a new chat function, so it's easier to talk and, start conversations that are meaningful, because it's kind of hard for me sometimes when I'm sitting here just talking and talking and talking, because I lose track of what I'm talking about. And on top of that, I lose track of what I wanted to say. So I'm excited. Be prepared for more TikToks. Check out the TikTok. It's the same name. It's very fun. I try to have a fun time with it. Almost 400 views on one TikTok. That's actually kind of cool. Like, I was expecting like 100, but they're very fun. As for that, I'll see you guys tomorrow, and hopefully, we get some more news that would, make my day, that would make it a little bit easier, make my job a little bit more easy.